did I mess up somewhere down the line and that's why he started acting this way? Like, he used to be super nice. Like, what did I do? Like, okay, I know he's not committing, but like, why won't he commit to me? Am I not worth committing? Am I like, what am I doing wrong?
And it's just the worst because you feel like you're being manipulated. You feel like you're getting somewhere and you're putting in all this effort and then you're getting nothing in return. So last time we had our conversation on red flags, and I gotta say, it was pretty intense, reliving some pretty negative moments
Yeah.
that luckily we were able to get past and be in a better place now.
Yeah. Although we talked about red flags that we have seen in other people, but that kind of got me thinking throughout the week, like, what are my red flags? Like, what are things that I do? And I think what I narrowed it down to was that I am hyper independent. And sometimes I'm like, I don't need anybody. I don't need this. I don't need that. And the way it has shined through in relationships, like, I kind of have this funny story. It's funny now because it didn't work out, but at that time, like, I think about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I did that. It was kind of like a red flag responding to a red flag kind of thing. Um,
Mm.
so it was early on in my relationship, like, I think like 2 or 3 days of dating this guy.
Oh,
And
dang.
he said, yeah, so super early. And he said, wow, I really, really like you. Like, you have me wanting to say other things. And I said, um, yeah, you should probably keep that to yourself. And he was like, and then he was just like, dang, girl, like, you're cold. And I was just like, I'm just saying, like, just keep that to yourself. But like, right, that was me. Because of course he was going to say the L word. And so that was me being like, no, don't be a red flag. Like, I'm like, we just started a relationship. But then I responded with a red flag way of responding. I was just like, don't say it. Like, no. Like, I definitely could have been nicer about it. But it's
Mhm.
just my hyper independence. I'm like, just like,
Mhm.
keeping people at a distance, like being guarded and these things. But
Yeah.
I just find that I'm constantly making guys wonder when I'm in a relationship, making them, or like, not even wonder, like, I have been told in the past, like, do you even like me? Like, do you want me here? And I'm like, I'm here.
Mhm.
And I should just not respond like that. Like, it's just a problem. And that is my red flag. But oh my gosh, it's
So kind of
crazy.
being super abrupt with things and just
Yeah. Yeah. It's
very
crazy.
interesting. I think that that's very similar to me as a red flag. And if my husband joined the podcast, he would probably have a lot more things to say about me. But I think the biggest one that I can, well, I wouldn't even call it red flags. I would just call it being a spicy Latina. But,
That's the
but
red
one of
flag. We blame it on
that's
that.
the
We
red
blame it on our
flag.
Latin head.
One
Oh
of
my
the
gosh.
many.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was gonna say heritage instead of heritage.
Es lo mismo, no pasa nada.
Está bien.
I think my biggest red flag is as a person in general, not even like in a relationship or anything like that, just with anybody. I know my siblings have called me out on this. It's just for being super honest.
Mm,
Anything, I think sometimes I can stop myself, but for the most part, if I see something, I'm gonna say something about it.
hmm
I'm very I don't really like to let things slide. I'm just like, it is what it is. And the reality to me, from my perspective, is that I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not trying to be rude. From the way I see it, a fact is a fact, But I do understand that not everybody sees it that way. And some people may see it as an attack, or some people may see it as me calling them out, being negative, being rude, but that's just not my perception of it. And so the conversations will typically go like, okay, but you did this, right? Yes, but no, but like you did this, right? But not everybody wants to be called out on things like that.
Right.
It's something that I'm definitely working on. And in fact, I just remembered this, but when I was in college, I really, really, really needed to find a job. And I remember one of my friends, she had messaged me and she said, hey, I just got hired at such and such place. They're literally hiring everybody and they're gonna hire you because you know how to speak Spanish. So just let them know that I sent you, let them know that you can speak Spanish and it's pretty much a given. And I was so happy, so happy. So I did what I had to do. I put in my paperwork, and then when I got to the interview, they asked me what is um one of your weaknesses, and I said I said that I always say what I think and that I'm very opinionated. I didn't get the job.
Oh,
The job that was um
automatic
given,
hire. Yeah.
automatic hire. I had all the qualifications. I was coming with a referral. I should have gotten the job, but when I walked out of that interview, I knew I was not going to get the job because of me
Yeah.
saying that. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Well, I think in that sense, like, it's just most of when you're, because story for another day, but I have worked a lot on my honesty, and something that I have been working on is my delivery. Like, because I
mhm,
too went from like one, like swung the pendulum way too hard, and like all of a sudden I'm brutally honest. But
mhm.
then I really like, it bit me in the butt for a while. And then I was like, but I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I guess now I have to work on my delivery. Like, dang it.
Yeah. And it's true, the truth sometimes does hurt because I know when I am being told things about myself, it's not always
Yeah.
the best, right?
It's not
So
received.
it's
Yeah.
right, yeah. So I definitely understand where other people are coming from, and it's something that I'm working on, but little by little.
We'll get there.
Well, welcome to Hither and Tither. Thank you for joining our conversation. For those of you that have already been here with us, welcome back. And for those of you that are new to our channel, I'm Em.
And I'm Yo.
And today we're going to be talking all things green flags because red flags are what keeps us questioning relationships, but green flags, for the most part, are the ones that keep us going. And as we talk about these green flags, we're not only focusing on boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever. We're focusing on friends, we're focusing on family members. We're talking all things green flags and just people that we want to keep in our lives and those that we may want to say goodbye to.
And even the people that you just want to keep at arm's distance, because let's be honest, sometimes you don't need to completely remove people out of the situation, or out of your life, but you do have to have boundaries, because sometimes we can really confuse green flags for red flags. Like, let's say oversharing, right? Like, if you're talking to this person and then you guys are having a great night, it could be a friend or it could be a relationship, or a potential relationship, and then you're like, oh my gosh, they shared these things with me, like we're super connected, and they really understand me, and they told me everything that they've been through. But then that might be a red flag in the future.
Yeah. The recipient of that conversation is like, wait, they said what? And
Mm-hmm.
you've known them for how long?
Yep, exactly. And then I think that's why sometimes we tend to ignore those red flags. It's because they're looking a little green from our perspective, you know? So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like we had a really good conversation. We really hit it off. They told me this, and they've gone through this and blah blah blah. And in the moment when you're having that conversation, you're like, wow, like I'm really connecting with this person or whatever. And then later on, as the relationship keeps going, you start seeing these patterns of this same thing that they went through that initially you felt sorry for them, and now you're just like, whoa. wait a
Whoa.
minute. Maybe
Hmm.
that's not what the whole story was.
But I do want to share something that is, to me, not a dual chrome flag. This is a green flag. From my perspective, there are some situations where I'm like, whoa, that was awesome. I'm going to keep you around for a little bit and see where this goes. Consistency. When people have consistency, because sometimes people can be intense, like they can have the intensity, but if you just have just intensity without consistency, I'm not going to try to pay attention. So I love consistency. Consistency, green flag for me, for sure.
So, like, if somebody's crazy, but they're crazy all the time.
Exactly. Consistency is key, baby.
No, but
Consistency.
like, okay, so obviously that's like dramatic, but like, what happens when you have somebody who's like always super nice and super kind, and then one day, ah, like they
They
just
just
go
blow
crazy
up.
on you, right? And then the next day, like they pretend like nothing happened, and you're like, okay, we're back to normal. But then when are we gonna jump back to? So now you're just kind of living in a state of,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
when
Like you're
is the bomb
skittish,
gonna
like,
drop?
yeah, when is the bomb gonna go off? I think in that situation, that one, I just like, okay, you blew up on me or you blew up on somebody else. I'm gonna put that information in my back pocket. If this happens again, if I notice that this is a pattern, then that's something that we're gonna have to address. Because if already I've seen that you didn't address it, then I'm already gonna see it. Oh, maybe that's turning a little bit more of a
Mm-hmm.
red flag if you didn't
Yeah.
address it at all. But if you're like, I see how I acted and I see that this, like I was frustrated, this was going on, blah, 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 I'm going to be a little more willing
Mm-hmm.
to see where that goes and see where that takes us, right? Because I'm still not going to disregard it, but I'm still going to see where your emotional maturity is at, as to where if you just blew up and then just ignored it, that to me is already like, I don't know.
I remember I had this coworker who one day, I didn't really work a ton with him, but one day I worked in the office and he kind of worked, out doing, I worked in a pest control, for a pest control company. And one day, it was just one of those days where he came into the office and he's like, no, I got in a huge fight with my wife. And he said, she got the sartén, the pan, and she started beating him. And I'm just kind of listening to him, appalled. I can't believe that I'm hearing this conversation. And then I said, I can't even imagine what my husband would do if I did that. And then he goes, yeah, but you have limits in different relationships. And, I think about it and I'm just thinking I could never put up with something like that. But I guess there's people that do, and in those relationships, it's kind of like you were saying, if it's consistent, if it's something that
Yeah,
they're used to, I
you're
guess
kind of
that's why it
used to it.
works.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And I'm not
either,
saying it's a good thing. I'm not
yeah,
trying to
yeah, yeah.
promote hitting anybody at all. But I can see what you're saying, and if you're consistent, I don't know, this feels so bad to say because I don't want anybody to think I'm okay with like hitting each other. But I think for them it worked.
I mean, for them, it was something that they grew accustomed to. I don't know that it necessarily worked, but it was something that became their normal. That's the important part of like early on in the relationship or in the friendship or whatever. Like, be careful what you let slide
Mhm.
because, or what you're not paying attention to because it can grow to something that you normalize and it doesn't necessarily have to be a good thing.
I have had this conversation with you recently about friendships too and consistency in that. I have a friend who is not the best at communicating and not the best at prioritizing friendships. And so I, on the other hand, am very giving when it comes to relationship. I really like to, reach out to my friends and kind of see how they're doing. And I realized at some point that that same I really wasn't getting
The
they
same
weren't
effort.
reciprocating. Yeah, they weren't giving the same energy. They were not reciprocating the effort that I was putting into the relationship. So I kind of took a step back from that, and then my friend noticed the shift and they were like, "Whoa, what happened?"
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that even though they weren't putting a ton of effort into the relationship, I was. And they were okay with that. And they had been accustomed to me kind of putting in all the work. So you have to kind of take care of yourself and see what works for you, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't just let people want for you to put in all the work. But I was so consistent in our friendship that that kind of worked. My friend knew that, I was going to reach out, so that relationship was going to continue. And once I stopped, they were like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't normal. And so I see that again, even in a friendship, right? Not just a romantic relationship, about being consistent. And it's very obvious when you stop being consistent.
Yeah. I went through some really hard times in like my mid 20s, and I did a lot of therapy. And one thing that has stuck with me the most that I still very deeply put into practice is you train people how to treat you.
Hmm.
You you are the one that's in control of what you allow them to say, what you allow them, what kind of treatment you want them to give you. And the more things you let slide that are disrespectful to you. And here's the thing, sometimes people don't do it out of harm, but sometimes you just see things differently. So sometimes something that you might find offensive, they might not. So
Hmm.
you do have to communicate, hey, I didn't like that. And then if they don't respect that, then that's different. But I do have like some friends that they know I don't like certain types of things that they're okay with. And around me, they just won't do them. So I very much appreciate that in them. But I've also had the opposite where I've communicated that I'm like, I'm not super comfortable with that. And they have pushed buttons. So
Hmm.
you just, but yeah, that's something that I have really taken in from therapy is just you train people how to treat you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thought. So green flag, being consistent.
Yes, consistency.
Yeah, cool. I think for me, a big green flag that I have in, just again, in all sorts of relationships, is when people listen to you.
Mm,
Um, I I've mentioned before that sometimes I just need to be heard, right? Sometimes I just need to talk, 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 and for people to just, even if you're tuning me out, just pretend like you're there listening to me, just come back every few seconds and go, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But yeah, that's something that I think is a really, really big green flag. Um, I remember when I was telling you that I wanted a coloring book and I was out looking for one. It was Valentine's Day that was around the corner, and then I got an Amazon package and I'm like, I don't think I ordered anything. And there was coloring books inside. So it seems like there's just like one little thing that when people just listen to you, they get to know what you want.
mm-hmm,
And that's just such a big thing. For me, I love giving gifts. I just love giving gifts because I really enjoy seeing how happy that makes somebody. And I don't just like to give a gift. I like to really think about it and put effort into what I'm getting you based on what I have learned about you. Because
mm-hmm.
I think the biggest gift is when somebody knows who you are. And I don't know. That's a really big thing for me when people listen.
Okay, so green flag listening. Um, Another green flag that I think um that I can see in somebody, again, in a potential relationship or in friends, is if they have healthy friendships. Like I will base off who you are depending on who's around you.
Mm,
And I've always said crazy attracts crazy. So if I already know somebody for sure that our personalities just don't mesh very well, and
mm-hmm,
you're hanging out with them all the time, I'm most likely not going to spend a ton of time with you. because we're just
Mm-hmm.
not going to mesh. Our personalities are just not going to mesh. And I know my personality doesn't mesh with just about anybody. So that
Mm-hmm.
is something that I am very aware of, is like the healthy relationships that you build. That
Mm-hmm.
tells me a lot about you, how you
Yeah.
build relationships, how you build friendships, and where you keep everyone. Sometimes that can also be like a dual chrome type flag, because sometimes, to me, I have noticed that if you have too many friends, like so many friends, that sometimes that could be a red flag, because they don't actually have like core friends. I always have like my tier friends, right? I'm not saying I'm healthy, but I I like to tier my friends in. Like I have my
Mm-hmm.
first tier, second tier, third tier, right? And based off of those tiers, that's how much information, or at least sensitive information, that you have about me. And so if I can see that same pattern in somebody else, that they have like friends that are tiered friends, I see that as a green flag to be in my life, because you and I function the same way.
Right. Yeah. It really reminded me it reminded me of this quote, but the first thing that came to my mind was you are what you eat.
No, it's true. Yeah, yeah, but that's
But that wasn't the
basically.
right quote. The right quote was, Dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
was thinking of,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
It's like
That's not what
I
I
think
thought.
you translated to tell me your five closest friends and I'll tell you who you are. I think that's the quote in English. Show me your
Really?
five
Five close friends?
uh-huh, show me your five closest friends and I'll show you who you are, or I'll tell you who you are.
Very
Mhm.
interesting. Very interesting. Well, you talking about that makes me think of another green flag that I wanted to share, which is trustworthiness. I think that
Mhm.
is huge, 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 especially since you're talking about, your tiers. And I'm very, what's the right word? I'm very specific about who I let into my life because I'm very open. I'm a very open person and I want to share with my friends who I am and like what my story is. But at the same time, I don't want to do that with everyone. I want to be able to do that with people that I trust. And I'm very lucky to say that I have built a pretty good circle of people, and there's obviously different circles, right? I have like my work friends and I have my church friends and I have my out of state friends. I have all like different groups of people that I love. But I love that wherever or whatever group I am with at that moment, that there is that trust, that there is that openness between us, that we can feel safe in the things that we say and don't have to feel like, we're going to be judged or anything like that. Relationship wise, I think that's also a really big deal when it comes to, phones. That is such a big deal nowadays. Um, I know a lot of people do this, but please don't take your phone inside the bathroom. I
Oh,
feel
I
like that
hate
is
that.
just a red flag and it's disgusting. I mean, come
Yeah.
on. I don't like that. Especially if you're the type of person that goes into the bathroom for 20 minutes because you're on your phone. Like
Yeah.
that's just weird. And sometimes it can seem like a red flag, but I don't know, just sometimes being able to just leave your phone without having to worry about, oh, they might see what's in there or a text message might pop up.
Yeah.
I just think that's a super green flag because there's that trustworthiness that if something pops up, it's okay. I have nothing to hide. Um, there's just like a lot of, it's okay to have boundaries and it's okay to have things that are very near to you that you don't want to share with others, but if you're sneaking around or you're
Yeah.
hiding stuff, that's questionable both in
It's
relationships
yeah.
and friendships.
Yeah, those are two different energies, right? Like something that I'm trying to keep to myself because it's, I don't want to say sacred, but it's just me. Like that's just something I'm not ready to share, versus something I'm trying to hide. That those are
Mhm.
two different energies for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I just I just wish go I feel like I still have something to comment about like bringing your phone to the toilet. Like can we just bring it back to the 90s, please? Like can you just read a soap bottle or a shampoo bottle or like like why do you have to bring your phone? Like I also find that very disgusting actually. I just don't do that. I don't. But I don't know. It's just so normalized. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Like, don't normalize stuff like that. Like, that's so gross. That's so gross.
I know, right? We definitely do live in a very different world. Jesus is coming, guys. Jesus is
Get
coming.
ready because he will be here anytime. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And hopefully when he does come, you got green flags because Jesus ain't about those red flags.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, at least try to paint them, like make them yellow, something, dude. Like, wash
I'm
them with
working
your
red
what?
flag.
Yeah, yeah. Make it pink at the very least.
A
But
little
we
bit
all
subtle.
have red flags, right, that we're working on. But honestly, I think something that I think, well, actually, no. If we're talking about Jesus, I think he would let a lot of things slide. But if I were Jesus, this is what I wouldn't let slide. Like when someone is mean to everyone. So, like, I guess we're going to turn this positively. If someone is polite to people around them, that is a green flag to me. I recently had an experience where I think someone thought I was being rude. Like one of my friends offered me a drink and not like an alcoholic drink, like it was just a soda.
Thank you
And
for clarifying. We weren't joking though.
we're talking about Jesus. I was like, I wanted this type of soda and he brought me the wrong type. I said like, oh, that's not the one I wanted. And I grab it and I just kind of was like, and I smiled, right? And I set it down. And at the same time, this other person and I both said thank you to this person at the same time. But
Mhm.
he thought I was going to be rude and not say thank you because he overheard me saying that that's not what I wanted. And
Mhm.
so he thought I wasn't going to be thankful to this other person. And he took it upon himself to be thankful for me. Little did
Mhm.
he know, we said it
That
at the
you were
same
also
time,
agreeing.
I was going to be thankful. But that really caught my attention. I was like, well, first of all, I was like, you thought I was not going to say thank you? But two, I was like, wow, that was very nice of that person to go above and beyond to be grateful for somebody else to make this other person feel like they did something good,
Yeah.
like, oh, this was appreciated. Anyway, so that really was like, wow, you're really polite to everyone.
Being polite is definitely a green flag. And it made me think of this one person that showed how much of a red flag I really am, which is embarrassing to be, it's embarrassing to say this out loud, but I think it's good to be accountable and to be aware of the mistakes that you make because this is how you grow. This is how you learn from it and it's how you become a better person. But I remember there was a roommate that I had. This is when I was on a mission for my church, and I had my companion, and I knew who she was. She had come in a little bit after me, and I had heard about her, and everybody liked her, and everybody was always raving about her. And I kind of found that to be annoying because I'm like, why does everybody like this girl? Why is everybody always talking about her? So
Like,
every
what's the
time that
big
I would
hype?
see her,
Yeah.
yes, yes, and every time that I would see her, I'd be like, oh my goodness, here comes a popular girl, blah blah blah. And really, now looking back, that was just me being an immature, right? I was like 21, so I was really young. Um, but but yeah, everybody would just hype her up and I really couldn't understand it. But then I remember when they told me that she was going to be my companion, I was kind of annoyed because I was going to be with this person that everybody thought was perfect. And to make matters worse, she was British. Nothing against the British, but she was British. So that just made her even more likable because she was foreign. Um she knows she knows exactly who she is and I have shared this with her, so no shame in sharing it. But then she became my companion, and literally it took 2 seconds for me to fall in love with her. She is
Mm.
the most amazing person, and her personality is top tier. She is just one of those people that just lightens up your day, and she's caring and she's loving. And here I am raving about her because she really truly deserves it. You know, she's just that ray of sunshine that everybody needs in their life. And she actually reached out to me, and she's coming at the end of the month, and I'm super,
Mm.
super, super excited.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, because I have not seen her in a really long, long time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing her. So,
Yeah, it's like she
um,
deserves all the hype. She
she
deserves
deserves
all the
all
hype
the
she got.
hype. She is like a green flag on legs. She
Oh,
really is truly amazing. I love her so much. And I it's her being polite and her being kind, and she really is just a um she just really is a green flag, and I love her so so much. Um so I was thinking that we should talk about the audience submissions. What do you think?
oh, yes.
Yes,
Yes, I kind of forgot about those. That's funny.
we actually put out a survey on Instagram a couple of days ago. We asked you guys what were some of the red flags that you accidentally confused into green flags, and we got some really good feedback. So Yo and I chose the ones that we thought were our favorites, I guess, the ones
Mm-hmm.
that we wanted to share, and we want to share them with you guys now. Do you want to go first?
Okay, so this story was the most impactful to me just because this could happen to anybody. When I first started talking to so and so, I was genuinely impressed by how attentive he was. He'd always check in. Did you get home safe? How was your meeting? Just thinking about you. It felt like such a green flag, like finally someone who cared about me. But over time, I started noticing that those check ins had become a little bit different with a different energy behind them. He wasn't just asking if I got home safe, he wanted to know exactly where I was and who I was with. He didn't just care about my day, he was tracking how quickly I responded. If I didn't reply fast enough, I'd get hit with a passive aggressive, I guess you're too busy, or a guilt trip like, did I do something wrong? What I thought was attentiveness turned out to be control. And the things that made me feel safe at first then slowly started making me feel anxious and on edge. Dang. So I think that green flag of attentiveness, that's why I'm saying, like, keep information in your
Consistency.
back pocket. And when people tell you who they are, you better be listening, man. You better be listening because those things will sneak up on you. And the
Mhm.
more you start to like them, the more things you'll let slide.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because you think it's a green flag, and then you start questioning yourself, right? Like, was I wrong? Did I misunderstand? And then we start feeling like we did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
in reality, we just didn't listen, right? Like you mentioned in the beginning.
Or even when that shift happens, like that shift of energy, you'll start questioning like, well, what did I do wrong? Like, did I mess up somewhere down the line? And that's why he started acting this way. Like, he used to be super nice. Like, what did I do to change that in him, you know? So
Yeah.
don't do
Theaters,
that.
if you've ever found yourself in that situation, or if you're currently in a situation like that, please make sure that you assess the situation. Please make sure that you really think about these things that are happening, and share them with somebody that you trust. Because sometimes when we're in a relationship and when we've invested so much into something, it's hard to let go, and it's hard to be unbiased about it. So, um, theaters, please just theaters, if this is you, just make sure that you really are looking at these things, and just question it. Question
Yeah.
it. Question everything else before you question yourself.
Well, and if you're in too deep and you don't know how to objectively just like step out, reach out to a friend. Be honest with them. Be like, hey, this is what's going on. I know sometimes, like when I'm telling a story to my friends, I'll accidentally leave out some information because I know deep down inside it's going to make him look bad. But if you're just honest with your friend, they'll be able to help you assess the situation a little bit better. And they'll be a little more objective than you can
Yeah.
be in that situation.
Definitely, when we're in that, we tend to walk like this, right? We
Oh my
see
gosh,
only
it's so
what we
bad.
want to see. Yeah, and we've all been there. And I think the first thing we have to do is to feel no shame about it. Don't
Yeah.
think that you did something wrong. And maybe you did, right? But you have to be honest with yourself. Did you really do something wrong, or is somebody making you believe in something that is not true?
Hmm.
So thank you for sending in that submission, and know that our heart is with you. Um, and hopefully everything is working out. Um, okay, let's go to the next one. I am also going to leave out the person who submitted this one because I think a lot of our listeners know who this is. Um, but I thought this was very interesting. It says he said he wanted to work on himself before dating, but he still asked me to go on a trip with him. So I reached out a little bit to this person to see if they could give me a little bit more context with him. So basically, they met online, they started talking, and they were really hitting it off. And so eventually she was finally like, okay, so what are we, right? We've been talking for a couple of weeks. Are we going to move forward with this? Are we still kind of getting to know each other? And he was like, oh well, like I'm not really ready to start a relationship, but I want to go on this trip and I want you to come along. And at first she was super excited, right? Because she's like, yeah, I mean, we'll get to know each other. But eventually, it just kept dragging along and dragging along. Oh, I'm still not ready, I'm still not ready. And then she thought about it, and she's like, well, had I seen it in the beginning, right? He was telling me, oh, I'm not really looking for a relationship. So it's kind of like you're being strung along by this is like this isn't raging, but it's kind of like you're like, here you go, just enough to keep you like right there, but never enough to commit. And
Hmm.
this is a tale as old as time. This is something that happens over and over again. I know that we have been in situations like that before, and it's just the worst because you feel like you're being manipulated. You feel like you're getting somewhere and you're putting in all this effort and then you're getting nothing in return. And then again, you start with the questions, right? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, why doesn't he love me? And we start, not only do we start questioning, but I think a little bit we start going crazy. we
Well, we
start,
start questioning our own worth at that point. Like we start
Mhm.
questioning okay, I know he's not committing, but like why won't he commit to me? All of a sudden you turn it on yourself. Like, am I not worth committing? Am I like what am I doing wrong? So you kind of go down this downward spiral of like just thoughts of yourself and why he doesn't want to commit to you specifically.
Mhm.
So I would stop it before it gets to that point because that is something difficult to get out of, and it can be very bad for your mental health.
Mhm. Yeah, theaters, especially when I was young, because I know we do have kind of a young audience sometimes. And when I was young, I thought the thing that I wanted in a man was for him to be interested in basketball. That was that was my list, right? He needs to love the NBA as much as I love the NBA. As I got older, I realized there are more things that matter. There are questions that we really should be asking. And I always say this to my girls. Number one question that you need to ask in a guy, can he read?
So funny.
But thank you so much to everybody who submitted their responses to our questions. We really truly appreciate everybody who's been engaging with us. It's been crazy to talk about these red flags, these green flags, and just things that make us happy and those that don't. We'd love to keep engaging with y'all. Please make sure to drop a comment. Let us know what you think about this episode, and let us know what you would like to hear more about. And for sure, if there are other green flags that we didn't talk about, give us some thoughts.
and put them down in the comments.
Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Hither and Tither, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Adios!
Adios.